So let's go ahead and take a look at how I solve this problem. The first thing is I know I need to include PHP code. So let's go ahead and add some PHP tags for that. Now, I know that I need to control the number of coins. And in order to do that, I'm going to create a variable called $number of coins. And it needs to be equal to something. Well, I know that it needs to be equal to a random number. And I know there's a PHP function called rand, R-A-N-D. I know that the minimum number is the first value. Well, I don't want any less than 3 coins. And I'll set the maximum number as 10. So now I know number of coins is always going to be equal to a random number between 3 and 10. Don't forget your punctuation. Now, I know that I want to put in a series of coins, and in order to do that, I suspect I'm going to have to use a while loop. So let's go ahead and put in the code for while, W-H-I-L-E, the parentheses for the test, and a curly brace, and I'll go ahead and close out that curly brace just so I don't forget to do it later on. Now, a while loop always has a condition to test against. Let's use number of coins as a condition. And if I'm going to use that as a condition, I also need to change it. So I'll go ahead and immediately add in something that decrements number of coins. $number of coins. And remember, if I do minus minus, that will subtract 1 from the value of number of coins. Now what I have is a loop that will continue to loop as long as number of coins is greater than 0. So if I have a random number assigned to number of coins, say 4, then each time it goes through the while loop, number of coins will go from 4 to 3 to 2 to 1 and then finally to 0. When while tests against 0, it stops executing. All right, now we need to have while actually do something. So let's have it print out all of the HTML that's required in order to place a coin. Let's go ahead and put that in here. I'll give it a little bit of space, and I'm just going to cut this code out and paste it inside my while loop. Now, this is HTML, and PHP isn't going to understand quite what to do with it, so we have to convert it to something that PHP can use. And that's fairly simple. I'll indent it, and I'll use the print command. Now, because I have quotes as part of the HTML, I can't use print quote here, because you can see how HTML and PHP are kind of conflicting about who gets to use the quote. I can solve that by, instead of using a double quote, I'll use a single quote, both at the beginning and at the end. And don't forget your semicolon for punctuation. So now I'm just going to go ahead and put in a print statement for all 3 lines. Pretty simple. And don't forget that last line. It's important. Okay, good. Now we're set. So now what I've got is a loop that will go through, and for the number of coins that I have, it will print out a gold coin at position left 100 pixels and top 100 pixels. If number of coins is equal to 4, then the while loop will place 4 coins at exactly the same place on the map. Well, that's not quite the solution we want. We want it to be placed in a random position. So I'm going to have to change the values for left and the values for top randomly. Let's set up 2 variables to do that. Give myself a little bit extra space. Tab in here. We'll call the first one X position. X position needs to equal a random number. We'll use the PHP random function. And remember that random requires a minimum and maximum number. Well, we know, for example, that 0 is the leftmost position for X, and 650 is the rightmost position for X. Add a semicolon. Now we can do the same thing for Y position. That will equal random, and as I recall, it's 0 and 400. Don't forget your punctuation. There we go. So now each time we loop, we will have a random number for x and a random number for y. All I need to do now is put those random numbers into the HTML code. Here's how to do that. I'm going to break out these print lines so I can see them a little easier. I'll put in a single quote and a semicolon to end that line, and I'll start up a new print line here just so I can keep track of what's going on. And then I'll do the same thing to break out the top variable. Now, all I need to do is replace 100 with the x position and the top 100 here with the y position. To do that, I'll put in a single quote here, and then PHP knows that it's supposed to add strings together or add words together, strings and words, if I just simply put in a dot. So I will put in a dot, then I'll put in $x position, followed by another dot, followed by a single quote. I'll get rid of the 100, pixel. So again, if we're looking at this line, what I've just done is said, print left colon, and then I want you to add the value of x position, and then I want you to add px semicolon to the end of the line. Let's go ahead and do that for top. So I'll put in a single quote, a dot, $y, position, a dot, a single quote, we'll get rid of the 100, and px. You'll notice this line doesn't have an ending semicolon, and that's a little confusing. But if you look back at the original HTML, you'll note that the div style line we're working on has semicolons in between these values, but not at the end. Let's go ahead and save this and run it and see if I've got a solution. And I'll switch over to my browser, and let's go back and take a look at the file that I just changed. Well, I can see that I've got a random number of coins, and they're placed on the map. The real test here is when I refresh. Oh, perfect. I get a random number of coins placed at a random number of locations. Now again, there's a number of ways to solve this. I used while, but you could also use for. Here's what the problem looks like solved with using a for loop. Or you could use it with a do while. Here's what it looks like with a do while loop. In any case, however you chose to solve the problem is fine. Just remember, the result is what is important.